Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the live match reaction to Wolves 2, Everton 1. Everton make it 3 defeats on the spin and do it in pretty embarrassing fashion as well. Another embarrassment of a performance in the first half. Slightly better performance second half, but not enough to offset the damage that was done. We go down, third defeat in a row, and a statistic here, interesting one for you. First time we've lost to three of the teams not in the established top six in a row since 2014 when Roberto Martinez had us sliding down the table. This is very concerning. We speak about not playing any of the top six in those three games. We've got 4 of them coming up in the next 5. It is really worrying, guys. We have been battered again by another poor team. I don't think they're particularly anything specially played quite well. I've seen them play well as well, but they're nothing to really raise any eyebrows, and they've come here and they've done us in. But there's just so much to be worried about from these performances. It's so disappointing. There's so many people to blame. You could blame the players, you can blame the manager, you can blame the people higher up as well. But so many things have gone wrong, and where'd you go from here? It's one of those. It's just, you just don't think it can possibly get worse, but it is, because we're going to play Antonio Conte's Spurs next week or whenever that is. God forbid. Honestly, this is probably the lowest I've felt as an Everton fan for a long time. Even probably since Ronald Koeman's sacking and that spell with Unsworth in charge. I think that's probably the worst. It's probably the worst it's been since then. I just feel like there's no hope at the moment for the fans. I feel like fans don't deserve to be, fair play to anyone out there who's tuning in, maybe on a bus back from Wolverhampton now, who went down there tonight and, was subjected to that, because you don't deserve it. There's none of our fans deserve what we've witnessed, and the constant cycle of pain we've been put through in the last couple of years, and the way the club is being run like an absolute circus from top to bottom. Nobody should be exempt from criticism for the state that we're in at the moment. We've had bad luck with injuries, but it's done is, just shine a light on the problems and with the recruitment, with the lack of depth. That should fall on, well, in a well-run club, it should fall on Marcel Brands, but a well-run club would get it right eventually. We will not get it right while we run the club like this. Marcel Brands, Bill Kenwright, Farhad Mashidi, regardless of the fact that he's putting money in, all to blame. Farhad Mashidi also, we can be thankful that we're getting a new stadium, but what's the point of a new stadium when we're going to be watching this turgid rubbish in it? We could well be watching Championship football in that stadium. What is the point of this club? Honest to God, what is actually the point? Yeah, I agree. Erwin Koeman in the chat here. We sacked the manager, and who do we get in? It's a circus. It is. And I think Rafa Benitez has got some positive traits, but at this moment in time, I want him sacked for no other reason than the fact that he's insisting, a la Marco Silva, on zonal mark, and that is what's cost us this game tonight. You never know what kind of result we get if that stays at 0-0. And we raise our game in the second half like we did. We might have been able to scrape a win or a draw. Not that we'd have deserved it, but if we'd have defended set pieces properly, we give ourselves a fighting chance. And he needs to get rid of that. He needs to sack that, or we have to sack him. That's how it is. Other than that, I don't think he's the main problem here. If he gets a grip and stops with the zonal marking rubbish, then I'm happy to back Benitez. Other than that, like I say, there's the hierarchy situation, the lack of accountability. Certainly a lack of accountability for the players, because the players are getting away with absolute ungodly murder, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm leaning towards not wanting the manager out, because it means these players get away with it again, and these players are a disgrace. the way, absolutely right on cue there, Eugene in the chat. There is no fight in this Everton team right now. There is no fight in it at all. Alex Iwobi cowering out to challenges, shall we say. Absolute coward of a player. And, yes, he scored our goal today, but Tom Davis scored our goal last week and he was rubbish then. So, again, he's not getting he's not getting off with it just because he kicked the ball in the goal once. He was cowering out to challenges. He was an absolute joke today. A couple of players, Gabaman's not fit enough, shouldn't really have been picked. I know there was a lot of clamour to see what he could do, because everyone else has been that bad in Decore's absence, but Gabaman was really bad. Delph came on and looked like a footballer, but that's still not enough. It's still not enough. Anthony Gordon came on and was easily our best player straight away, which, when your best player's making 30-minute cameos, then you're in trouble. And let's make no mistake about it, we are in serious trouble. We've just lost 3 games on the spin, like I just said, to not all 3 of those sides, not established elite sides. One of those sides is likely to be right down the bottom this season, and they put 5 past us. We're in a relegation battle. We've got to be straight about it. Yes, we're still 10th, 11th, wherever we are, but we're rapidly sliding down the table. We have 5 games coming up. 4 of those are against the established top 6 sides. One of them, yes, have been struggling, but look like they're going to appoint an elite manager. Then you've got Manchester City, Liverpool, and a resurgent Arsenal. We're in serious trouble. We need to sort this out immediately. What that means, I think, we'll definitely be in some form of relegation trouble come Christmas, but we might be able to get back out of that. I don't know. Erwin Koeman says we're not in a relegation battle yet. Not yet. Yet is the main word in there, Erwin. I think that we're not there yet, but give us a month of playing predominantly top 6 teams and we will be right down there. This team is cowardly. It will get hammered by all of those teams. Brentford's in the middle of that as well. I don't see us getting anything out of that. If we carry on like this, it could well be a historic, for all the wrong reasons, run of, we could be looking at, if we don't do something drastic, it could be 8 straight defeats. We could be looking at that kind of embarrassing. This team needs to seriously look at itself. It's not a case of firing the manager. Like I say, it's a sacking offence to continue with this zonal marking strategy, which is not a strategy. It's just ludicrous. But other than that, it's not on the manager, really, for me. The manager's, other than that, I think, done most things right. I think the board have run the club like an absolute circus the last couple of years. There's still a lack of stability, but above all else, and I'm not sure if the board sort of seeps down through the club, that sort of culture, but the players are a disgrace at this club. Some of these players have no professional pride. They don't have any desire to wear the Everton shirt. It doesn't really matter to them. These players don't care. Some of them just don't look like they want to be there. Jonathan Haddoc lost our fight yet again, and physically nobody's strong enough. No one ever seems to win a challenge at Everton. That's like one of the most crucial things to be a well-liked Everton player. You've got to want a physical battle. He does not. There's the vast majority of the squad are shaking the physical battle. Semi-charm life. Players literally sleepwalking through an entire half of football. I think that's a bit generous, to be honest. Sleepwalking, I don't think they were doing the walking part, to be honest. Semi-charmed life. Really, really miserable stuff, let's be honest. Yeah, James Shields. I'll just go through a few of you guys in the chat and get your opinions as well, guys. James, lack of effort from the boys. Also, if Rafa must zonal marks, we need to be much better drilled because they look lost at times. We need to just sack that off completely. That is where we're going wrong. West Ham, we get a draw if we learn out, if we mark properly from a set piece. Today, I reckon we get a draw at worst if we mark properly from a set piece. The Watfords, we never know what might have happened there. Obviously, we were 2-1 up and then let one in from a set piece, and then it all went wrong. But you never know. We could well have had, 5 points on the board, and instead we've got 0 if we knew how to mark from a set piece. It's absolutely shambolic. You cannot be doing this zonal marking crap in this league. You just get found out straight away, and we look like a laughing stock. We are a laughing stock at the moment. We're the laughing stock of the league, and if we're not now, we will be this time next month. I'd hazard a guess. It's a really, really serious problem at the moment. Yeah, Mitchell, we've got to take into account that it is tough on Rafa Benitez. 3 first teamers injured, Calvert-Lewin, Mina Decore, a large amount of the spine of the team, but injuries don't decide who does zonal marking, so we need to get a grip there. And also injuries don't decide how rubbish the other players are. So there's an element of bad luck, but there's also an element of mistakes by Rafa Benitez and also systemic failure higher up the club as well. So there's a lot of problems. And yeah, I'm being a bit melodramatic, maybe, I don't know. But it's just... yeah, I feel pretty bereft, to be honest. Chris sums up exactly. He's very much on my wavelength here, I think, Chris. Where do we go from here? Eugene says, I think Rafa needs to buy some players in January transfer window and get rid of some of the deadwood. Yeah, but I feel like we're replacing deadwood with deadwood at the moment. I think some of his signings were okay. Townsend and Gray have been okay. Don't think Gray was particularly good today, but probably the first bad game we've seen him have. So, Townsend, he's a solid, if unspectacular player. Don't mind him at all. Certainly 2 of the better names in this absolute circus of a squad. Yeah, plenty. Kate Calvert-Lewin must have been embarrassed tonight, yeah. In case anyone was wondering what that's about, Calvert-Lewin was on the panel on Sky Sports, which I'm not sure if that was... I think, given that I wasn't feeling too confident about our prospects going into this game, I really wouldn't have wanted to go on there if I was him. But fair play to him. He was brave for doing it. Ewan Koeman felt so bad on DCL tonight. Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't do it. I mean, fair play to Calvert-Lewin. If he's got the guts to go on that, at least he's got the guts to make it as an Everton player. Ewan Koeman says, James, who did you want as manager before Benitez? Mate, I didn't really want any of them, if I'll be honest with you, Ewan. I don't know who the answer is. Like I say, regardless of who the manager is, there's systemic failure higher up the club that makes it impossible for any manager, no matter what their pedigree, what their tactics, what their personnel, what their style is. I think it makes it impossible for any manager to be a success here. Even Carlo Ancelotti, if he'd have stuck around, who knows? We might have been a bit better. We'd have certainly been better off than we are now, I think. But even he might not have got us to where we want to be because there's too much systemic failure higher up the club. And it's got to be said. It's got to be registered amongst our supporters that sacking a manager or sacking a player isn't going to make a major difference in the grand scheme of things. There's got to be systemic change at Everton Football Club if we're to have the sort of revival that you see in other clubs that I'm immensely jealous of, by the way, at the moment. The likes of Wolves, for instance, West Ham, Leicester, these clubs who are not as big as Everton by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly heading upwards, looking like they can maybe mix it with better sides, the established elite. And we are failing to do that. We are failing as a football club. We're failing our supporters. There needs to be systemic change, and the supporters, we as supporters, need to be asking for that. I think, to be honest, it needs to be a bit more. There needs to be more desire for something different at Everton. I think there needs to be. We need to realise that as a club, that our culture is more than just making up the numbers. I think somebody mentioned, and I saw a tweet just before I came on here, that Everton are now just the club that makes up the numbers in the Premier League. That's all we do, with a team that everybody wants to play. Everyone wants to play against Everton because we just roll over and let them have their day in the sun. Like, Wolves knew they were going to. Wolves fans probably were feeling very confident that they'd come and have a nice day tonight, a nice Monday night out, and see the team win pretty comfortably without having to feel too nervous about what we were going to offer, because we just roll over and let everyone have their own way. We're just a sideshow to be laughed at and humiliated, because that's what this club has been allowed to become. And it's not the way that this club was built. The history of this club is a winning history until the last 20, 30 years. And we need to get back to that, and people need to realise that that's what we should be aspiring to. It won't happen overnight. No, it won't. But we need to realise that the club isn't being run in a way that's going to allow us to succeed in that. A new stadium might help, but that's just a small piece of the jigsaw. There's more changes that are needed at Everton. Yeah, we'll get straight through it. I'll just keep on going with the lads on the guys getting involved on the comments, because I'm getting into a bit of a rant there. Yeah, so Kate, they should really just invite fans to speak to them at this point for them to book up their IDs and realise how they're affecting the supporters club. Yeah, well, it's our club at the end of the day, regardless of who is the manager, who's the owner, and what the ambition levels are of the club. It's our football club at the end of the day. We are the supporters, and without us, there is no football club. And that goes for every club. But, you know, it's not long ago, and, you know, he's a bit of the flavour of the month at the moment, but a certain manager called it the People's Club, which is, some people use it as a stick to beat people with that tag, which, whether you like it or not, it is quite fitting in terms of the fact that, you know, we the everyday people who go to the stadium and, you know, sit on the terraces, we're the heartbeat of the club, and we need to, you know, make sure that we have our own influence. There needs to be more influence, and the fans need to feel more of a connection. I think that's one of the main things I'm noticing from this rut. Yes, there's a bad run of results, but it's the disconnection that the fans are feeling between themselves and Everton Football Club at the moment. And I certainly can speak for myself in that regard, that I feel as disconnected from Everton Football Club as I've ever felt at this moment in time. And it probably shows in the tone of my voice, the misery, the depression, how bereft it sounds, everything I'm saying, and it's tough. But yeah, I was go through the comments. It's all well and good saying sell the dead, but they do rubbish. Who would buy them? The club stinks from top to bottom. This is the whole issue of, like, this is why we're struggling with FFP in the first place. The players are that poor that we currently have, that nobody wants to pay real money to buy these players. Yeah, there's so much to get annoyed about at the moment, I guess. FFP has bent us over, basically. Absolutely. FFP is one of the reasons we're in the state we're in. Koeman is to blame, says Mr. Dominic. Koeman was the start of the FFP crisis, of course, but we haven't helped ourselves in the time since either. We've spent large amounts of money on a certain Alex Iwobi, who's played today and played very poorly. You know, I think this is exactly, I think Blue Nose Dublin here, brilliant to hear this coming from I think this is exactly what we need. Brands plus the club need to give us hope by telling us the business plan. Then again, they don't have one, it seems. Championship teams are spending more than us. We're squad ever, massive 2 transfer windows ahead, but there's a lot of change needed. I think it's tough. It's going to be a really difficult couple of months, I think, certainly to get to that January transfer window. And then maybe we can, like I say, I can get a bit of my optimism back regarding this football club, because right now I've never felt so depressed about our prospects. It was depressing under like Koeman, Unsworth and Allardyce. That 17-18 season was depressing. It was depressing just before Silva got the sack, but this is the most depressed I've felt as an Everton fan, because I feel like back then I felt like if we had a change, then things might pick up, and things to an extent did. But I feel like now it doesn't matter what we change, that this club is never going to change, and things need to be a much more wholesale change. It's not just a case of sack a manager and things will get better. It's sack a few players and things will get better. There's so much more to be done, and it needs to be done if we want our football club back, or the Everton that we can feel connected to. And, we're not even talking about an Everton that wins the lot. We're talking about an Everton side that we can go to Goodison Park and feel connected to. Because I've never felt this disconnected from an Everton squad, from the club in general. It's just really, really depressing right now. And like I say, I feel I'm running out of hope, to be honest, with Everton. I think there's not much of a chance of us kicking on at the moment. And I'm sorry I'm being really overly miserable, but it's just the way I'm feeling right now. And yeah, I'll just go through a few more of these comments. UK Genetics. Everton players are lazy. They do not work for the shirt. The manager is not a fault. The manager to a large extent isn't. If he, as Josh was saying here, how's the set piece defense this consistently bad? That is Rafa Benitez's fault, and that is the sword he's going to fall on. That's the hill he's going to die on. I think that is going to be his downfall as Everton manager. Yes, there's the past and whatnot, and who he's managed. We know who he's managed in the past, but what's going to let him down as Everton manager is going to be his set piece record. It's already being noted by pundits. It's being noted by the statisticians how many we're conceding from set pieces. It's embarrassing. He needs to get a grip. And if he does, then I think Benitez is probably the closest to being exempt from criticism, because most of the other things he's done, I think he's done right. Too many of the players who are still at the club have let this club down on a regular basis when the goings got tough. It's just there's so many of these players who are cowards and not fit to wear an Everton shirt. There's semi-charm life. Wasting our money on rubbish is the cause of our current woes. I think that's been the case. I think we've been aware of that for a long time. I think the FFP situation obviously hasn't helped us in terms of improving the squad this summer, but the two best players we brought in, they've both been quite good signings, and for a combined 1.7 million. So maybe it's not always about spending money, but we've just got to be smarter. If we can be as smart as that over a couple of windows, then there may be hope. But I just don't have confidence in this club's recruitment policy that they're going to get it right. I feel like there needs to be either wholesale changes or, like Blue Nose Dublin said earlier on in the chat, that there needs to be a statement from Marcel Brands or somebody else at the top of the club explaining what the club's plan is. I think that would be a massive step forward for everybody to maybe help us all, like I say, who've lost our connection to the club, feel a bit more connected again. I feel like we matter. Also to feel like that the club, the cogs are turning and we're moving back in the right direction, that the mistakes have been acknowledged and the right decisions are now being made. I think that statement would alleviate a lot of fears amongst our fan base. I think that'd be excellent if they could do that, but it's disappointing that they haven't already. But I think if it carries on the way it's going, I think that's definitely a must if the club's to keep the fans on side. Plenty to get through. Rafa Benitez has had his post-match interview. He said it was not a question of shape, it was a question of character. It was a question of both, if you'd ask me. The character was very much in short supply, shall we say, but it was also a question of shape. The shape was so poor in the first half. We were caught out. We were getting, it was like a knife through butter at times. In terms of their team unlocking our defence, we were being part on like the Red Sea at times in the first half, and we got what we deserved in that respect. In terms of the response to that, Dylan, not a question of shape, but you joking midfielders were missing the entire game. Yeah, I think particularly in the first half. I think it got a little better in the second, but even then, we won the second half, but it still wasn't really good enough in terms of performance, I don't think. Yeah, Blue Nose Dublin, let up Spurs, don't get a new manager bounce next week. Keenan Goffrey nowhere near international standard. Dean Poor this season, Coleman back up only. Rondon lol. Yeah. It's tough. Jay Warbrick says, Rafa is to blame for the team. He puts out the squad. Is embarrassing. 2 goalies on the bench. Yeah, there's some things he's got to take the blame for. I'm conscious of not putting too much of the blame on Benitez. I'm going to blame him very heavily for the set piece goals that we've been conceding this season. But other than that, I don't know how much of it's on him. The 2 goalkeepers on the bench, that needs to stop. I mean, I don't care. Just start putting some of the under 23s on the bench, please. Like, just how bad can they really be? Can they really be as bad as some of the players who took to the field this evening? I don't think so. Dylan Kinsella, I'm genuinely fearful of this season's outcome. As am I, Dylan. As am I, mate. I'm really worried about this season. I think we needed to get a result here to alleviate those fears, and 3 straight defeats with 4 of the next 5 coming against the top 6. I think that's going to be, the fans are very much lacking in confidence in this team already. I think confidence is on the floor. We don't need that kind of a fixture calendar coming up. I think we could be in serious danger. I think we're probably in as much danger of relegation as I can recall. Certainly, Sam Allardyce got us out of danger pretty quickly, as did Ancelotti when he came in, and Ferguson before him. I'm really worried about what this season has in store now. I think we'll have players to come back and we might improve. How much we'll improve, I'm not 100% sure. Will it be enough? Hopefully. I think it will be. But just being it enough to stay out of danger isn't really what we were hoping for this season. And it isn't what the club should be aspiring to. And I think there needs to be bigger changes. James Shields says Brands has to improve or be sacked, though one slightly clever window doesn't answer for the 4 or 5 terrible ones. I think he's had a couple of decent windows, Marcel Brands, but a couple of really bad ones as well. I think it's quite a mixed bag. A mixed bag isn't really good enough. But how much, again, and I think how much is Marcel Brands' fault is, again, we can't gauge it because, as I've said before, there's a lack of accountability. Nobody knows what anybody's role is. There was the article in The Athletic very recently which stated that sometimes Marcel Brands has to consult about 5 or 6 different people to get the nod on a signing, which, it's an absolute joke. I don't know how much of it is his fault. I think he's definitely partly to blame, but there's so many personnel you could point fingers at: playing personnel, management personnel, board personnel. There's so much. The club is rotten to the core and things need to change if we're to get back on the up. And it feels like the club's been in a steady decline now for the past 7 years, really, since Roberto Martinez's second season. Really, the club's been in a very steady sort of sleepwalking into a sort of demise, which could well easily, if we carry on at this rate and don't address these problems from top to bottom, could end in relegation. that's how it ended up happening to Sunderland. Years and years of continuously running the club badly. It can end up that way. And if you think we're too big to go down, then you've got another thing coming. We've got to take a stand, and we've got to try and keep the club. We've got to try and get that connection back with our club. I think that's the most important thing. I don't know what the answer is, how we go about that. Like I say, I think a brilliant thing for this club would be for, like I say, a Marcel Brands, a member of the board maybe, to come out with a statement and sort of alleviate our fears and tell us what the plan is, if they have a plan. And that's the main thing. We want to know if there's a plan. We want to feel encouraged, and we want to know that the club is trying to push in the right direction. Wormy Spoon says we are in no relegation danger, too many shit clubs, and he's probably right there, but I think we're very lucky that that's the case, that there's other clubs that are as bad as we are, because if not worse, because that's probably what will keep us out of danger this season. I think it's definitely looking like it'll be a bottom half finish this season. I just hope it's an 11th or 12th rather than a 16th or a 17th, because I don't know if any of our nerves can collectively take that. We'll have to wait and see. But obviously a very negative result today, and a bit of a negative mood around the club, and certainly from myself, apologies for that, guys. It's just a really tough night and a really tough result and a really tough period for our club. I think we need to, hopefully just stick it out as we always do, but we need to be sure to make people aware that if this continues, it's really, it can't be accepted. It shouldn't be accepted right now, to be quite fully honest. That doesn't mean the manager needs to go. This isn't really on the manager to a large extent. There's so much we should be upset about as Everton fans right now about the current state of our club, and we should be trying to help influence a change for the better at our club. But for now, let's see how we get on. We've got, I think, Spurs coming up next with an Antonio Conte potentially in the dugout. That could be a very interesting day indeed. But that's what we have to hold our hopes out for now. We'll have to wait and see how we get on there. And another week of being miserable about Everton until then, it seems. So what can you do? We're just the fans, and we're the ones who care about it the most, and we're the ones who get hurt the most. And yeah, here we are. We're still here, still doing it. Fair play to us, to all of us, I think, for the loyalty we've shown to the club when it quite often gets thrown back in our faces, especially anyone who's, like I say, on the way home from Wolverhampton right now, on the coaches, on the trains. Fair play to you for making that trip and being that brave, because you deserve all the pints you can get tonight, I think, and hopefully better times ahead at some stage. When that'll be, we don't know, but fair play to everyone, and thanks for tuning in to this show. Not the most positive show, like I say, but nonetheless, let us know your opinions. Keep your comments coming in after the stream's finished as well. Give the video a like. Subscribe for more content. Hopefully some more positive content coming your way at some stage. Fingers crossed. But anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching on the Toffee Blues.